welcome to another episode of the Widnes Rugby Chat podcast with myself, James Gordon. I'm joined this week by Andrew Horabin, who I'm sure everybody knows.
Hello, everyone.
If they don't know you, they know your shirts.
Yeah,
Andy. Well, I know that it's been a bit of a turbulent year for you, I suppose, in some ways, in relation to the club and Widnes. And there's a lot of comment on social media about it. So I thought it'd be good to get what's going on from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So the last time I guess fans will have maybe seen you was at the Q&A that was held a couple of months ago. Do you want to just let us know what's happened since then, really?
Yeah, since then I was in discussions with Stuart Murphy. He contacted me a couple of times, or I tried contacting him. Sometimes he nightmare and he don't get back for days, but he's had a few personal problems in this, what I gathered, and I've made offers to him to go back on the board, and I think they're good offers. They're better than what being given off for any of the board members previously, and they've come back to me and said that they can't work with me now. That's the final answer they've come back with. I've gone with 2 proposals. And they've said no, and they said they can't work with me. Now, I know in business sometimes I don't like people I work with, but I've got to do it, and they should be doing it as well as a club. We don't all have to agree, which we didn't agree in the boardroom, but I can't disclose a lot of things what went on in the boardroom because obviously I've signed their disclosures and stuff, but we have had disagreements in there and stuff like that. But everyone, let me tell you beforehand, everyone in there has got a good heart for the club and stuff like that. But some of them can only give so much, but they give it in other ways. Now, I want to give it in both ways. Financially I can do it and put and work into it. And for them knocking me back yet again, I just don't get it.
How did you feel that... So the Q&A basically came off the back of sort of the sequence of events that, to make people aware, was you were on the board, you resigned off the board, and we'll perhaps touch on that in a little while. There was then this statement that came out about you wanting to get back involved, and then the Q&A was held and fans came and you and Stu basically had a Q&A with it was a packed room, wasn't
it?
Roger. How did you feel that went? Did you... Because it did get heat. I thought everybody handled themselves fairly well. It did get heated at times. I think it was at times a little awkward. But how did you feel that went on the night? Did you feel like you got what you wanted to get across? How did you feel you were treated?
No, I don't think I got my point across as such because I kept on getting the mic taken off me to an extent. But I did put a fair amount across, but there was various other things I wanted to say, but it's not all about me, it's about the club and moving it forward, and that's what I want. And I know for a fact, and that is fact, I can move that club forward. Not just me, with everyone else. I'm used to doing decisions myself, and it's hard going on a board with another 5 or 6 people. Well, it was 5 people now. They've got the Australian involved now, and for me, it's a good thing. I said, but he's thousands of miles away. I'm on the doorstep, and they're saying no to me and saying yes to him. I'm a long-time supporter, I've, been a ball boy there, I've done the turnstiles there, I've done the shops, everything else over the years, and, I come as a director as well, and I'm passionate about the club, and I want us Super League, and, the reason why the likes of Tim and that got involved is because we were selling them the dream of, like, we're getting back into Super League. We pushed for Super League this year, and we were very close to getting it. Last year, should I say? And we were very close, and we weren't far off. We hit the bar, and my thing was me personally myself. I want to still pursue that and try and get that. Same as everyone else on the board. They all want the same thing, but there's only so much some of them can do as well.
Do you think Super League's realistic, though? Because I've heard a few things about Super League, and a few comments have been made. But have we seen enough evidence or action from the club that they can get to Super League? Because at the moment, we've not been able to win the Championship or be at the top end of the Championship. So do you feel like that is something that's realistic?
I think something in the next 2 or 3 years. They said they've got a strategy plan. I've never seen that. I know you're going to touch on that in a minute, but I've never seen that. They said they're going to and this, that and the other. But, you know, to be fair to the board as well, you know, the goalposts keep getting moved all the time, and there's new criterias all the time and everything else. And I think everyone's aware they're moving the goalposts to suit London at the moment.
And to be fair, you're right to caveat that. And again, it's not a criticism of Widnes. I think when I ask, is Super League realistic for Widnes? It's a two-pronged question, really. It's one, is Widnes the club capable of being in Super League, which I think deep down we all hope that it is. But secondly, are the RFL, no matter, you know, if you knocked on and said, I'm putting £10 million into Widnes, there's no guarantee, as we're seeing with London at the moment, to be fair to them, they've got people putting money in. There's no guarantee that the RFL would say, yes, you can come in.
Well, what I've been told off Stuart, if we had the stability of like £780,000 in the bank for a year or two, then that proves that we can bankroll it to go into Super League, and that's one of the biggest criteria for it. Everything else, I think they're thereabouts with. Obviously, we were trying to build a foundation up to get, you know, the youth back involved and stuff like that. I think that was going quite well, but all of a sudden, you know, I come off the board, Tim's left, and I think we're two big, massive assets to the club, and I think they're wrong in what they're doing at the moment. They shouldn't have let Tim go for first, and they should allow me back on the board. And I don't know, what I want to know is answers. Why? They saying they can't work with me. Why?
Do you regret saying, you said about, obviously, people have not got money or haven't got any more money to put in on the board. Do you regret saying that we should get rid of them people? Do you regret saying that?
Not regret. Maybe it was a bit harsh. You know, they saved the club. These people have saved the club. Let's get it right. You know, they're up there, and, you know, I'll put them on a pedestal. But at the same time, we need to go to that next level now to get to Super League. And for me, financially, some of them can't do that, but they can do stuff. And, you know, I was a bit harsh in that. But what I'm saying, they're holding back to an extent, because they have their say. We've all got we all had equal says on the board, no matter how much someone's put in compared to someone else. And I think that should change as well. The more money you put in, you should have more of a say. But, you know, that's what it was like before I joined, and that's what it's been like now. There was talk of them changing that. But obviously there's only certain things I can mention and not mention because I've signed a confidentiality. But I'm pretty sure people know, people have taught who's putting in, who hasn't. You know, I'm hearing a lot of things. Well, such a body's only put this in, and they've been there for 7 years. Well, we need bigger investors and everything else. Well, for me, I'm one of the biggest investors out there at the moment. Who said, and I've put my money where my mouth is, I was putting in each week, you know. To be fair, they did buy me back out. They've given me my money back, but I want to go back in. I've got the hunger for it, and I've got the love for the game again.
Let's rewind back to before you came in and how that came, because I mean, I didn't actually know this myself until recently, but you've got a bit of a connection with Alan Coleman. You used to play rugby with him back in the day, and that was sort of what prompted you to maybe start getting back involved?
No, I went to the 1989 reunion thing, and Roger and Rod were asking me, and I said, look, I've got a few financial things I've got to do at the moment. What was it I'd need to get in? So in the end, I approached them and said, yeah, I'm willing to do it. It's one of being my lifetime ambitions to do it. It's not about an ego with me. I really want us to do well. Yeah. I want the youth to come. You know, we're saying, let's go and get these Australians. Let's go and get this. Let's go and get that. I think our best times at Widnes over the years has been like local talent, when we had all brothers playing the Humes and O'Neills and you can name it. I can go on, the Milers. They were all passionate. They all played for the hometown and everything else, and that's when we were very good.
I mean, I know it's a completely different level now.
Yeah.
But even the team now, if you look at the team now, the better players are the Widnes lads and the lads who are from the local area. And like you say, making sure that you've still got lads like that coming through in 5-10 years is going to be important.
Well, look in Super League, look how many Widnes lads are playing in the Super League. You know, all right, we can't afford them at the moment. It's proven that. But, you know, we've got local lads here where we should be, you know, getting them at a young age and bringing them through the foundation. And, you know, Alan and a few of the others are working through and trying to build that to get it through. You know, I know Roger's got a lot of time in that and he does well in that. You know, he's been there and done it more than a T-shirt over the years.
So you came on board after you put whatever it was in to buy your place on the board. What then happened?
Well, first few weeks it was, you know, in and out, finding my feet, finding over a few months, and then I thought, there's no money generating here. How are we going to do this? So I sat down with him and I said, look, let's call a business club. And he went, well, won with it. See, the board were happy. He said, yeah, you won with it. And I done really well with it. But while I was doing that, my own business was suffering because I was spending a lot of time going around, and it is time consuming. But, you know, I built it up and there was money coming in. So therefore, you know, money coming in gets us to get to better players, which we have done. We strengthened the squad. But when I was at the Doncaster game, you could see they were a different level to us. They beat us. And I wasn't happy. I'd heard a few things and I thought, I can't give my 100% here. I'm going to resign. I've had enough. They asked me to stay on. I did, but then in the end, there was things I wasn't happy with. And for me, we needed to put money in accounts and put extra money in to fund getting better players. So if you start playing well and getting results, people start coming back and they get the hunger for it and everything else. You have to speculate to accumulate. Now, I know the board are very cautious about that because they don't want to do an Halifax and all the others, and I understand that and I respect that. But you have to speculate to accumulate. Fact. That's anything in business. The business I run now, you know, I have to put money back in all the time to build it, to build the foundations to get it bigger and better.
That, when you resigned after the Doncaster game, you'd already, is it right, am I right in saying that you'd resigned previously and it had been rejected?
Yeah, they said we'll do things, we'll try and sort stuff out, you know. But for me, if I do something and put 100% in it, I want to look at Widnes fans and say I've done my best. And for me, I couldn't do that.
You mentioned a couple of things there. I completely agree about, while there's some question marks over, you know, spending money on players, etc. I think your best chance of getting into Super League is if you're the best Championship team. So
one of the best.
Yeah. So like last season, and I've used this example before. Everyone was talking about Oldham last season because they were in the top four. Now Oldham had spent 15 of the last 20 years in the third division, right? But because they were in the top four and they were doing the right things off the pitch, people were talking about the Super League. Whereas because Widnes were 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the table, they weren't. I think if Widnes are consistently in the top 1, 2, 3 Championship, we know that the facilities, the fan base, etc. is all there. So I agree with you on that point.
But can I just put you something there? We went to Halifax and in the last 5 minutes, you know, we come back at them. If we'd have won that game, I believe we'd have got to the final. And I think we could have won it on a one-off game as well.
Yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying is, at the moment, Widnes haven't been doing that, is what I'm saying. Ultimately, since got relegated from Super League, been in the playoffs once,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
Whereas the size, or my perception of the size of we've got the biggest, now the other teams have gone up, Widnes got the biggest fan base, you know, one of the best facilities, obviously you've got the history, etc.
Yeah, of course we have. So massive history.
Widnes need to be finishing first, second, or third every year in this league, and you know there's debates to be had over the format, which I'm sure probably you don't want to be bored to death with. So do you feel like that do you feel like that's what you're saying is the money you want to put in is to buy players to be able to do that? Is that sort of your
to strengthen us moving forward? You know, I asked the board when I was there, could we all put money into an account? And there was one person who said, yeah. The rest of them said, well, I'm not willing to put any more money in. They haven't got money to put in. That's fine. But what I'm saying then, it went from one extreme to another. Well, I might sell out, I might do this, I might do that. So I offered a couple of people to buy out. And before you know it, I'm buying half of the club and people were going to leave, people were going to do this. And then it just it just spiraled. Now, I don't want to take people's positions and everything else. I think there was strength there. I think myself, and I know where I've gone wrong as well on the board, because I've gone to Alan and said, no, go and sign him. No, go and do this. And, it's a decision of 5 or 6 of us. That's the only thing I've done wrong at that club. And I held my hands up and I spoke to them all and I said, look, I had to take a backward step on that. And I understand that. And moving forward, if I did go back into the club, they could clip my wings and say, no, we do it as a team. And that's what it is, it's team. There's no I in team. And I get that. But because my passion and everything else, and I wanted to move fast on, like Duffy, we had a chance of getting him. I was willing to put the money up. 2 weeks before the beginning of the season, or before the squad, we lost Mays on because he went back. And Duffy was starting to come available. Unfortunately, he didn't come because his wife went back home. She was pregnant, and they decided he went back there, and he's ripping it up in Australia now. And I think he'd have been a great signing for us. And I think he'd have put bums on seats as well. And that's what we need. We need to speculate, to accumulate, to get bums on seats. And I think there's a bit of a buzz, or there was a bit of a buzz. I think things at the moment are getting a bit dull again because they've lost Tim. There's been a lot of things with myself, and I thought of that questions and answer. I had 90% of that room who I believe was backing me on that. And it's not me against them or everything else. I just want the best for the club.
I think obviously a lot of the people in that room, want the same, the board want the same as well. Mm-hmm. And I think at the moment people are probably having the difficulty for people is they see someone who wants to put money in, who obviously is passionate about things, and I guess they're wondering why it's not happening, which I guess is for other people to maybe debate. In terms of the money, how much do you think? Well, two things really. How much do you think it would take to be that top championship team, and how much do you think it would take to do the Super League thing?
Right, so Super League, you're going to need about $1.5 million
per year.
For us at the moment to be in the top 2 or 3, between 700,000 and 800,000.
Right.
That's what I think.
So that's on top of what's already being done, you mean?
This year?
Yeah.
I don't know what's been done. I'm not there now, am I? And obviously the budget cuts. But then Stu come out on a podcast like a couple of weeks ago. I don't do social media, but it's only what people have been telling me that there could be money available. He's got a meeting with the Rugby League or something. He might be up the budget, but for me at this present moment, there's a few signings I think we need to make. Local lads as well. At the beginning of the year, would I have thought of signing the 2 of our most senior players? No. Would I now? 100%. You'd have to sign him, and I think they need to sign him. Because they're playing well, they're playing out the skin. The actual squad is a squad. They're all playing for each other, and you could see that on Sunday. Considering they're a part-time team against someone who spent a hell of a lot of money, and not always the money, does it. You could say for Leicester, for instance, years ago, they didn't spend a lot of money, but they won the Premier League. It's not all about money, but you have to have decent players in your squad, and that costs money.
So, in terms of the money, then you mentioned them figures there. So, are you saying that that's revenue rather than you putting that amount in, or an individual?
No, I've offered to put in 50,000 straight away, 50,000 in 6 weeks. That was my proposal, and £1,000 a week. So for me, over a year, that's £150,000, 150,000 grand in the first year. Now, I was willing to put £1,000 a week in continuously, and then if there's any big signings or we move to the next level again, but I know somewhere down the line, I know a few people who would be willing to come in, but it depends on everything moves and stuff like that, because I do know a lot of people in Widnes and Runcorn and various other places who would.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the business club there, which, I've had a little bit of insight into that, over the past few months. The business club, and we saw when it first came out, your pictures with, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I don't know where it got up to get to 50 members or something like that.
About 60, there was a few paired up front.
Right, well, let's just say it's 50 because the numbers are easier.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, 100 quid a month, 50 people paying 100 quid a month is $5,000. And then over the season, that's 60 grand. So from your presence, you're saying you're going to put in the 50, in theory, it'd be 50 grand ongoing. But the business club itself was going to add 60 grand on top. So all of a sudden, your contribution is 110 grand. I suppose in that sense, then you're looking at that's quite a loss. Then if you're thinking if you're not in, you're not then giving your money, and then potentially that other money is not coming in. How else do you think the club would be able to get that money?
Well, this is the thing. We had many board meetings, but it was all strategies and everything else. There was never any talk of how we make money. The thing is, unfortunately, that club, we don't own the club. We don't own the ground. So we've got no revenue coming in. So it's all about sponsors. And, Walty's done a cracking job since he's come in. He really is. He's excelling over it. I put him. I've said to him, go and see these, go and see them, and a few of them are like, big sponsors now. They're taking sponsors on, and he knows a lot of people himself, and he's brought a lot of revenue in.
He's the best.
100%. Yeah, it's
And again with Tim, obviously Tim, we maybe have a sort of. I'm confused about, I obviously know Tim really well, and I'm confused about how all that situation came about. It strikes me that the club wants somebody to do a certain role, and they perceive Tim as like a PR type guy, which I think is vastly unfair on him, because I think what the strength for Tim was that he was bringing people together. He was connecting people. The past players that have been around, or players he used to play with, but even sponsors or fans that come. And it's not just because he's doing the videos on Facebook and whatever, but it's not because he's doing them. It's because behind the scenes he's putting them little efforts in to go and see people and to take care of people and speak to people. I suppose.
Can I just say something about Tim?
What do you think about
Tim is fabulous. And even when Roger had said to us in a board meeting, I could be speaking out of term a bit here, we've got a feeling that Tim might come here. Now, we have to put it out for people to come and get interviewed and everything else. And I went, he'd be fabulous for us. That's the first thing I said. Get him. And he went, well, we can't do that. And I went, well, why? And he went, because we've got certain protocols we've got to do to get him here. And I said, right, fine. I said, but I'm 100% Tim. I said, he's passionate and everything else, and he'll bring so much to it. And he did. Yeah. And he'd done a hell of a lot. There's a lot of things he hasn't liked at the club, of various things. And that's what made him, for me, he feels that there's not enough, not passion, enthusiasm to get to that stage, and I think that's one of the reasons he's gone.
I mean, the protocol thing's interesting. Obviously, I've got a couple of businesses, and it makes me, ultimately, Widnes is just a business like your business, like my business, whatever. That confuses me slightly, but maybe we'll brush over that. What I obviously, I'm around the club a lot, external. I'd always, obviously through my work I am, but I would always be there as a fan regardless anyway. I think one of the things that maybe strikes me over the last, in this area, if you like, it feels like the board is quite disconnected to the staff and also the fans to a degree. And I'm not saying that just under Tim. I felt the same, I obviously knew Steve Roberts really well, I knew Phil Finney really well. And I don't know why, but, and your perception might be different to this, I almost feel like the board's almost like keeping things in itself and being, not necessarily, I don't think that they're doing it out of any malice, if you like, or anything like that. But I almost feel like it's not, like, I don't want to say secret society, but I almost feel it's a bit like that. They're the board and they're not telling people what's going on. But then the problem with that then means is that people can't help.
I totally agree with you. I had a conversation yet again in the board that we need to be more transparent with the fans and everything else and stuff like that. You know, there was a few times I used to go to the training sessions just to see how everything is. I'd ask the lads, you know, how is everything and this, that, and interacting with them. And I'd go back to the board and say, look, blah, blah, how do you know this? And I went, because I've taught me out of it, and, you know, and I've interacted with the players to find out where things fit, where things don't fit. You know, even the facilities, the shower rooms and stuff like that, how they were. You know, they come up and said, we need them clean. And I went to Stu and he said, right, get a cleaner. So we got a cleaner and got it done. Lights, this, that, the other weren't working. We got them all done for him because I wanted a professional outfit. And sometimes for me, before I come in on, no, sometimes it should be a bit more professional than what it is. And I think that's where we have to interact with the, you know, with all the staff that work for us, really, because they are staff. And, you know, you say to them, well, what about this? What about that? But like you say, you don't think there's enough interaction. No. And I agree with that.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I think that. And I think, do you think it's being over-engineered? Now, I say that, obviously, I've worked in semi-professional and professional semi-professional at a low level, so, you know, football, basketball, ice hockey, etc. Widnes don't own the ground. So what that means is Widnes don't have the worries or the maintenance, or they don't have to worry about any of that. Whereas, you know, you go to a local football club, they've got to mow the grass, they've got to stock out the social club, they've got to do all them things. Whereas ultimately, all Widnes is at this moment in time is a rugby league team that trains twice a week and plays on a Sunday. So,
oh no, they Saturday as well. They did.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, but, you know what I mean. I'm being a bit crass with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do you feel like it's being a bit over-engineered? Are we trying to make it too complicated when the reality is, at the moment, that's all that the club is. You've not got to look after a stadium. You're not, you know, yeah, we've still got to do the sponsorship and stuff. Is there a little bit of, are we trying to make it more complicated than it actually is?
No, I think what we need to do as the whole lot is, I think we need to get the right people in the right places to move forward, to push for Super League. And at the moment, I feel that we're going backwards. That's my honest opinion, and you know, I'll stick with that. The reason for this podcast, I don't normally do social media and everything else. I don't mind, you know, having pictures of them and showing that how we were building the business club and stuff like that. But I don't normally do this. But I feel like I needed to, because I don't want us being the first division. I want us being Super League, or should we say the Championship. We should be fighting for that. And for me, I want the board to reconsider and put me back on the board, and let's move together and be together, and let's go forward with it. And that's why I'm doing this podcast today, so I can let the Widnes fans know what is going on and what I'd like to do. But, you know, let the board come out and say to me, these are the reasons why, and that's why we're not allowing you. You know, I won't take it personally, but at the moment, you know, a letter what I've sent and everything else. I mean, you can send a letter. I've got nothing to hide and everything. And then, like I said, I'll hold my hands up on one thing. You know, I've been going to Alan and say, let's get this play. That's my enthusiasm and everything else. But I shouldn't be not for that. You know, I should have my wings clipped and say, right, okay, you know, we have to make this decision together.
Yeah.
I said, but like I said, I'm used to making decisions myself because of, you know, my business.
So where does it go from here? Like, because ultimately, you can keep going back with offers, and they could keep saying no. Ultimately, I think
it's a fans' club, isn't it? Oh, it's supposed to be.
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't, I suppose.
Right.
You know,
so at the end of the day, I think the fans should decide, or they should hear out what they've got to say if they're not allowing me. Because for me, at the moment, there's not people knocking on the door, or not many people, what I know of, knocking on the door who want to give that sort of money to move this club. I know I'm not going to get any of that money back. That's a fact. If I'd have to put more money in again. But I'm willing to do that for this time. You know, because I'm a local lad and I want to see it doing well. And why things are okay for me financially, I'll give back to my community. And the biggest thing in this community is rugby league.
Yeah,
it's a rugby league town.
Yeah. Do you feel like some of their worry might come from, well, what happens if you say there when you're doing well financially. Do you think their worry comes from, well, what happens if in 5 years you can't do it anymore? Do you think that that's the source of their worry?
But you'd know beforehand, or you get put strategies in place. But the business club, that's gone down a hell of a lot. A lot of people have pulled out of that. But I could build that back up and get the revenue. One of the things they turned around and said to me the other week, well, we don't want you back on the board, but can you still run the business club? I've got nothing to prove to anyone. I know what I can do for the club and move it forward. But for them to say that, for me, wasn't right.
You mentioned about Halifax before. And this is, again, an RFL type situation. Halifax went bust. North Wales Crusaders went bust. And they start up again in the same league. Do you look at that and think, well, what is the risk to Widnes going bust? I know we don't want them to go bust. We don't
want them to.
What I'm saying is, if you take the risk and it doesn't work, and the club goes bust, it can't be any lower than it is now, anyway.
No, but we don't want to be in that situation again. And I've got board members who were there as solely about that. They don't want anything like that to happen because they saved the club, and they did. And I take my hat off to a lot of them. But to move forward to the next level, you have to take calculated risk, and that's what I think they need to do. And with the likes of myself and other people will come in, and I know I can get other people involved.
So I guess there'll be some sort of response to this. I'll chat. Everyone's more than happy to ring me anytime if they want to have a chat. What timescale do you think? Like, I suppose ultimately you want them to ring up and you come back on board tomorrow. But I guess when you look at how seasons run, it's pretty urgent, I guess, to get you in place for next season, because now is the time when contracts are being sorted out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They could be in talks with other people and stuff like that, but I don't think they'll have any more passion than I've got. And I have got a lot of connections in Widnes and Muncon. A lot of businesses know me and stuff like that, and they would put into Widnes. They would. And, I've proved that, the proof's in the pudding.
So, thinking about Super League, and that's where everyone wants to be. I think about my son now, and, he's 10. He would absolutely love to see Widnes playing in Super League. And that's the dream that you've got to try and sell, the kids at the moment. What do you see the future Super League being? Do you think that the way Widnes gets in is if it goes to 16 teams and that's the way Widnes gets in?
If we're knocking on the door and we're up there and we're knocking on the door and we're first and second, and we meet every criteria, but the rugby league don't know what they're doing half of the time. I'll be honest with you, they change the rules to suit whoever at the time. But for us, we need to be financially stable. And doing that is like the likes of myself and other people who want to put into the club to see it do well and build the balance up. Let's get it up there so then we can compete for Super League.
I mean, you might not be able to answer this question. I assume when the RFL have the council meetings and obviously a representative from each club goes, have you ever been to one of them?
No, I haven't.
Do you feel like clubs need to do more to challenge what goes on in them, or do you feel like you know what goes on in them?
Well, I'd like to think Stu, battles our corner every time he goes there. Sometimes he'd come back and go, I can't believe what they've said today. They moved the goalposts, and he's been open and honest about that many a time.
He voted against Nigel Wood, which was a big decision to do, which I think was the right thing.
I think everything's unsure with the rugby league at the moment because there's the talks of the NRL taking over it, and I think it'll go that way in the end. And I think that might open a couple more doors, but we need to be ready for that. And at the moment, we're not ready. And losing Tim and stuff like that, I go back to it. I think he was a big asset to this club, and to lose him. There's a lot of people, I know a lot of fans, and they're saying, why have you gone? Why has Tim gone? There's something not right here.
Well, I mean, certainly I don't think there's ever been an example of a non-playing member of staff leave a club and have so many people questioning it why. I've seen decent players leave and not have that amount of people wanting going. Do you think Widnes could do more to not get in bed with the Australians, but I think my perception is that if you were in Australia and you were asking him to name 10 rugby league clubs in England, Widnes would
Be
probably
one
be
of them,
in the
yeah.
top
Yeah,
10.
of course he would, yeah.
So do you not think there's a way that Widnes need to be sort of chumming up a little bit with the NRL people? And is that something that you or, someone like you would be able to do?
Look, the first thing first is getting back on the board.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do, and then, like I say, I can't make the decisions on my own. That's one of the reasons why I don't think I'd have to, go with the majority of what everything says, and that's what I want to do. But it is hard, one, going to games, and I wasn't going to go this week because I thought, they've snubbed me, they've turned around and said they don't want me there, and for me, I didn't say that kindly, but I thought, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to go to that game, and I'm going to prove to them I want to be part of this club and move it forward. So it's down to them now to get together and maybe have a chat and then come back to me. And that's why I'm doing this podcast today.
Andy, thanks very much for your time.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll see you again very soon.